G'day everybody, Michael from Cut Purse Gothic here. I am the creator and welcome to our how-to video. So in this we will show you how to set up and how to play Cut Purse Gothic. Okay, setup. First of all, you want to lay out your Laverna City board in the center of your play space, and you want to give every player their own player board. You'll notice we've got a few decks in the game. We've got our action deck, event deck, and loot decks. They're our primary decks that most of the game will be played with. We also have a deck of reference cards, so hand these out to any new players that you may have. There's instructions on the front and back. Note that there are also instructions here on the game board if anybody gets a little bit lost. This is a very easy game to pick up and learn though, so should be fine, but just for the first game or two. We also have our Grand Scheme deck. We'll get to Grand Schemes in a minute, but essentially big brain moments call for extra rewards, so we can put those aside until they're required. And we have our Tiebreaker deck, which will be used in the case of, you guessed it, a tie. So we can put that aside for now as well. So let's do the action deck first. Pretty straightforward. Give it a shuffle. These are really good quality cards. These are S33 cards, which make them ideal for shuffling. Each player gets 7 cards, so this is where we'll speed up the footage. Okay, and so now all of our players have our 7 cards. The action deck goes into the action deck space. The event deck, much the same. Give it a shuffle. Alright, event deck goes in the event deck space. And the loot deck, this is a little bit different. So in Cut Purse Gothic, the Sunrise card, that guy, that indicates the end of the game. So we'll take that out of the loot deck. We'll give the loot deck a good shuffle. Then what we're going to do is we're going to split the loot deck roughly in half. And we're going to shuffle the Sunrise card into the bottom half of that. That way we know that the Sunrise card is going to happen towards the back half of the game, but no one's exactly sure when that's going to happen. Right, once we've shuffled the bottom half, we put the top half back on top, and then the loot deck goes in the loot deck space. The last thing we're going to do is populate the Laverna City area with loot. We add the number of loot cards equal to the number of players plus 1. So in this game, let's say it's a 3-player game, we are going to put out 4 pieces of loot. So we have a satchel worth 12, we have a legendary treasure worth 21, another legendary treasure worth 17, and a pouch worth 6. And that is the setup complete. So the objective of the game is to steal as much loot from the city area as possible before the Sunrise card is drawn. The first player is the player who most recently wore a hoodie, and each player takes their turn. There are 3 phases in each player's turn: the action phase, the event phase, and the draw phase. Each player completes those phases, and then we go clockwise around the table, stealing loot, getting ourselves into mischief into the city via the event cards, and then the game ends when that Sunrise card is revealed from the loot deck. Then we resolve the final event phase, and then we will count up our total loot from both our inventory and our stash to declare a winner. In the event that we have 2 loot totals the same, that's when we break out our Tiebreaker deck to find out who is ultimately victorious. So in the action phase, we can do 4 things. The first one is steal loot. To steal a loot card from the Laverna City area, players need to use the numerical value or mathematical symbol from their action cards to build a mathematical equation equaling the loot value on the card. So keep in mind you can only use either the number or the mathematical symbol on each card. So with what I've got, let's try and make something happen. Alright, so let's try and make this simple to start with. I won't go for the higher ones. I'll go for the satchel worth 12. And I can do that quite simply by placing my guard card and using the number 6, my servant card for the multiplication symbol, and I can use my hide card to use the number 2. So that becomes 6 times 2 equals 12. So I claim that loot for myself, I place it in my inventory, I make sure I repopulate the loot pool, and I discard these cards into the action discard because they've been used. That is how you steal loot. You're creating those equations to equal the exact number on those loot cards. Now, if you like, you can use the text on these action cards as prompts to tell the story of how the heist played out. So you can say, let's say, so I hid in a local drain pipe until the guards moved away. Then I paid off a servant to let me into the treasury area where I stole my satchel. Something like that. I'm sure you'll be much better at telling stories than me. I mentioned earlier these grand scheme cards. So to steal that piece of loot, I only used 3 cards. If, however, you happen to have a big brain moment and you use 7 or more cards to collect a single piece of loot, then not only do you get to claim that loot, but you will also apply a grand scheme card to it. This signifies that your planning was so meticulous and it's executed so well that whatever you steal is effectively worth double. So you would apply this grand scheme card to this loot card. They follow each other around throughout the game, whether you're stashing your loot or somebody else is stealing your loot. This particular card, for example, it's worth 10, it will always be worth 20 for the remainder of the game. So that's if you use 7 or more cards in a single equation to claim a loot. That is what a grand scheme is. You'll also notice in my hand here, I have a chaos card. Now, chaos cards are our equivalent of wild cards, and that can be used to replace any number between 1 and 10 or any mathematical symbol. The concept behind the chaos card being that when chaos reigns, in this case it is a plague is ravaging the city, guards and the overseers enforcers aren't paying as much attention to you as they probably should because of the chaos in the city, so your life becomes a little bit easier. So chaos is good for thieves. So that's our equivalent of a wild card. We also have this cards with this symbol here, the A plus B. That's a both card, and what that allows you to do is if you apply it to another card, instead of using, say, this rabid dogs card, instead of having to choose between the 7 or the addition symbol, if you play this both symbol with the rabid dogs card, that means you get to play 7 and the addition symbol. So it effectively allows you to use both the number and the symbol on any card. This synergizes very, very well with the chaos card because played with a chaos card, you get to choose any number and any symbol. So a both card plus chaos is very powerful in this game. So that's how we steal loot using our action cards, and it's also how we use the both symbol and what a chaos card is all about. The second option that we have is discarding our cards. So let's say we have a hand full of division and minus cards. This can make it very difficult to build an equation to increase the total to get to some higher numbers. So if we've got too many of these, instead of stealing, we may choose to discard. And we can discard as many cards as we like. We don't draw up though until after the event phase, so in the draw phase. The third option in our action phase, other than stealing, discarding, is stashing our loot. So event cards can have an effect on what we have stolen. When we steal a card, it goes into our inventory, which essentially means we have that in a bag on our person. That is a dangerous place for valuables to be, especially in Laverna City at night. So what you can choose to do, instead of stealing or discarding, you can move all of your cards from your inventory to your stash, and that will protect your hard-earned rewards from the vast majority of events that happen in the city. In addition to stashing, you can gear up as well. And this is where you draw one action card and place it in your gear slot. This effectively increases your hand size from 7 to 8, and you'll notice there's 2 gear slots here on the player board. You can gear up to a maximum of 2 gear cards. No more than that. If you already have 2, you can't gear up again, but this expands your hand size, which can be handy, and it can make creating equations to get some of those higher value treasures that much easier. So once you've completed your action, so you've either chosen to steal from the city area, discard some cards that you're not happy with, stash some loot that you've stolen, or gear up. Once you've completed that action phase, now it is time for the event phase. This is really straightforward. All you do is draw an event card from the event deck and you resolve the card. So for example, this one, the Huntress Stalks. Daggers whistle through the air. Quick reactions save your throat, but your tools are rendered inoperable. Discard 1 gear card. So I would then obviously discard one of my gear cards. Pretty straightforward, but there is a twist. Now, the veteran thieves taking part in the grand heist, we're not ordinary thieves. We have a rare supernatural connection to otherworldly forces, and that connection manifests as glimpses into the future. So if we have cards with the Foresight icon, then this allows us to play these cards as a reaction to either nullify an event card or reactivate it. So let's say this was a particularly nasty card, or let's just say I just didn't want to discard my gear card. I do have a Foresight card. Rather than discarding this gear, I could then burn my action card and say, no, that doesn't apply. However, because these are reaction cards, if another player had a Foresight card, they could then place theirs on top of this and reactivate that, forcing me to resolve that card. So think of the reverse card in Uno, how you can reverse. Same sort of thing in terms of nullifying and reactivating the event effects. That's if you play one Foresight card. There is a high risk maneuver, but it can be high reward, and that is playing 2 Foresight cards at the same time. That will allow you to not nullify, but redirect the effect of your event card to one of your other players. So that is effectively your chance to sabotage other players. It is high risk because you do need to burn 2 cards, which means you'll have 2 less to perform your actions with when it comes back to your turn. It also means that if your target player has a Foresight icon, they can nullify that redirect, and then you have to do that anyway. 1 Foresight card can nullify and reinstate event card effects. 2 can redirect the event card effects to a player of your choice. So once you've had your action phase, you've resolved your event card, then we finally move to the draw phase, where we draw back up to our hand of 7. So draw back up 2 cards, and that is my turn complete. We then go to the player to the left. We continue to steal loot and repopulate, and steal loot and repopulate, etc., until the Sunrise card is revealed. There he is, third from the bottom. Once the Sunrise card is revealed, the player who reveals that card resolves their final event card, and this is the time, if you have any of your Foresight cards left, this is the time to burn them to try and affect the final result of the game. But once that final event card is resolved, the game ends. Everybody totals the loot value of their inventory and their stash, and the player with the highest score wins. Okay, so what do we do if we have two players with the same total? That is when we get out our tiebreaker deck and we give each of those players one Ascend card, one Poison card, and one Relinquish card. So the lore behind this is to become the new Guild Master, you must first complete the ritual. The ritual is drinking from the Chalice of Shadows and then ascending the throne. So there are three options here. This is effectively our version of rock, paper, scissors. You can choose to ascend the throne, you can choose to poison the chalice, or you can choose to relinquish your claim. Each player gets one of these cards, and they will place one of these face down. Once both players are placed them face down, we reveal them, and we follow the instructions on the card to see who wins. So with an Ascend card, this wins against Relinquish because the guild recognizes your skills as a Master Thief. You drink from the Chalice of Shadows and ascend the Pauper's Throne, and because the other person relinquished their claim to the throne, you do so unopposed. Ascend loses against Poison because as part of the ritual, as you try to ascend, you drink from the chalice, and Poison, you die. Poison will win against Ascension for that exact same reason, but it will lose against Relinquish because if you poison the chalice, but your only competition relinquishes their claim to the throne, guess who has to drink from the chalice? So Poison loses to Relinquish. Relinquish wins against a Poison for the exact same reason, but it loses against Ascend, as we've previously discussed, because that person ascends unopposed. So there you have it. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to download your own copy of the rulebook, please go to cutpursekgothic.com. There you can download the abridged version that comes in the Thief edition, or you can download the deluxe A5 booklet that comes in this Guildmaster edition. Thanks so much for watching. See you later.